Hey guys, this is Anthony P from the DFS Army, coach and contributor. Today I want to take a little bit of time to show you guys how I calculate my floor when I'm building a lineup. There's many different ways that people do it. I want to show you guys how I do it and how I go by selecting some players. So I'm going to take about 10 minutes today to go through this. And if you guys have any other questions, then you could hit us up on Slack. In the NHL talk room, and we could get a little bit more in details. The first thing that I look at in the morning or late at night is I want to get a feel of the slate. So, we look at the implied team totals. When I'm playing cash, it's really important for me to get an idea of where ownership is going. Do I want to be part of it? Do I want to be contrarian for that specific day? And if we use yesterday's slate specifically, I want to go look at the home and away splits. I want to look at the implied team totals. I want to see how the team's been playing in their last five. I look at the power play. I'm going to look at standings. I'm going to look at Corsi. Probably spend about 15-20 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer if the slate is a big one. Yesterday we only had 4 teams, so when we're looking at the implied team totals, something that stood out a lot yesterday was Florida with a implied team total of 4. That's pretty high. And when we're looking at the home and away splits, Florida's got the 10th best offense at home in the league, and the Rangers have the 6th worst defense on the road. Florida has been leaky throughout the season. They have the 24th defense at home, but they've been playing much better in the last 5 since Bobby Lou came back. There's a lot more stability in that. So when we're looking at this, we need some exposure, maybe even heavy exposure into this game if we want to stay within the chalk, which is really important in a 4-game slate. When we're looking at Pittsburgh and Toronto, we're expecting a high-scoring game. That's what we got yesterday. Pittsburgh, shitting the bed pretty much, playing against a Toronto team that's been struggling since Matthews got injured. New Jersey with the upset yesterday, some great value coming from Nashville. There's still a lot of value coming from Nashville, so we wanted a little bit of Nashville. Minnesota, Edmonton, Minnesota on a back-to-back on the road. Worst defense. McDavid looked as a lock yesterday when you're looking at the splits. I didn't go with him. We'll get into the why that didn't happen. Let's take a deep dive. So this is what I do. Standings are really important also. Pittsburgh on the road, much more different than home, right? New Jersey on the road, pretty solid compared to their home record. Rangers on the road, very weak. Edmonton at home, weak. So this gives you a pretty good idea of where the scoring is going to come, who you want to start focusing, and we take it from there. So I have the Rangers that I want to attack yesterday. I had New Jersey that I wanted to attack. I had both Edmonton and Minnesota that I wanted to attack. And when I get into the research station, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to download the file into an Excel format because I want to add a couple of things. I had a column over here which gives me goals per game for the season. I had another column over here which is the assists per season. I do the same thing for the last 21. I do the same thing for the last 21 for goals and assists. And then at the end, I also add how's the player been playing in the last 21 versus his season floor, and how's the player been playing in his last 21 in terms of total fantasy points versus the season. Why is this really important? Because my floor, what I focus, what is the most important for me, the research starts with the floor of shots on goals and block shots. Why? Shots and block shots is a lot more predictive than goals. So I start by sorting from the largest to the smallest. Shots on goals and block shots. I want to start looking at who's been consistent throughout the season. Where's my floor Where does it start for this slate? At the center position. And I don't look at here. There's absolutely nothing that I want to look at over here. And who do we find at the bottom in terms of floor in yesterday's slates? Moore, Darnay, Sheehan, Zajac, Cullen, Strome, Johansson, who could give you some upside. He scored yesterday. But this is where I want to look at, right? I want to see, what am I doing at center? Right? Am I paying up? Am I paying down? 4-game slate. Who do we have? And I try and determine also where's the ownership going to be. When I'm looking at pricing here, yesterday in my notes I said that I need, I don't want to pay up at center. We've got in the top 7 centers, we've got 4 of them that are overpriced versus the DK pricing. We got Trocheck and Barkov as our top 2 in terms of floor. No one's surprised. Trocheck looks really good, but the popular and the sexy pick yesterday was Barkov. When for those who I read my notes, I specifically said that Barkov is the type of chalk that you want and that you need, and I'm glad that I was right, because he was owned at 75%. So even if he did fuck all yesterday, if he was going to go off, you didn't want to be part of the 25% that didn't have Barkov. When you're looking at Trocheck, he was only at 21%. He produced a little bit more. So when you're looking at cash, this is the guy you wanted. When you're looking at GPPs, this is the guy you wanted. Why was he so over-owned? Well, again, popular pick. When you're looking at his floor of 6.28, how has he been playing in the last 21? He's got a floor of 684. He's actually at 0.56 over his seasonal floor versus our friend Trocheck here is at minus 1.91. However, his productivity was not impacted. But when we're looking at Barkov, he's 10 fantasy points over in his last 21 games over his average of the season. Why? He's been averaging 0.39 goals per game for the season. Boom. 0.64, 7 goals in the last 11. Sexy, right? 1 assist per game in the last 21 days versus 0.67. So his productivity, just common sense, plus 10 points in his last 21 versus his average. This is where everybody went, right? When we're looking at McDavid, he's just as sexy. Playing against the worst road defense on a road back-to-back. He's 9,100. Do I want to go there? It was just too expensive. So I decided that I was going to move away. When I'm looking at value, again, I'm going to the floor for my season. I go to the salaries and I just drop down and see who pops up at the cheapest. And we've got Brassard here at 5,400 with a floor of 4.95 for the season. And we have him at 4.8. Many are complaining, including myself, that he's not producing enough. Maybe our expectations were set a little bit too high for him playing with Kessel. But he's got a solid floor. I'm playing cash here. Who do I want to go with? Ryan here. 5 games, 3 games back. Yesterday was 4th game. Not enough consistency for me. I want to go down to McCann. He's on the 3rd line, 2nd power play. Even if the matchup is good, he doesn't have a lot of ice time, 13 minutes. But I used him as a GPP. Hayes made the list, but he's a little bit expensive. I liked Hayes because of the matchup. All right. I didn't go with Ziba because I just wanted to pay down. If I wanted to go with him, right? Every single dollar counts. So this is my thinking here when I'm looking at centers. And I'm calculating the floor here, and I want to reach 120 points. So I want to try and get the highest floor and see what the gap is, and then look at how many goals I need, how many assists I need to be able to reach 120. We'll get there in a couple of minutes. When I'm looking at wingers, I do the same thing here. Goals, floor, goals, floor. So something I didn't say at the beginning there, why I have them in red, is because I'm going to sort them for the season. And then I'm going to highlight my top 15. I'm going to highlight my top 15. I'm going to highlight my top 15. I'm going to do the same thing for 21 here. And then I'm just playing with the numbers. I'm looking at the numbers, seeing where we're going. One of my favorite picks every single time that he's playing, Ornquist. He's got a floor of 6.74 for the season. He's at 8.46 in the last 21. There's nothing more consistent that you could find with this player. Every time I have an opportunity, I'm going to take him. He's got huge upside also. And in terms of fantasy points, he's very consistent in the last month versus the season. Yes, he was injured. He came back. I understand that. But he's very, very, very consistent. Taylor Hall. Everybody loves Taylor Hall. I love Taylor Hall. I would pick him every single game. But he's playing in Nashville versus the 7th best defense in the league. When we're looking at his productivity, day in, day out, you pick this guy. He is giving you on average 17 to 20 fantasy points. His scoring rate is higher in the last 21 versus the season. I just didn't like the matchup here against Nashville, but I did love Arvidsson against New Jersey. It was a good matchup against the 17th. I think they're home 17th. Yeah, 17th. New Jersey, 17th best defense in the league on the road, averaging 3.2 goals. Nashville has been scoring. He's been hot. So when I'm looking at Arvidsson, I'm seeing that he's averaging, let's look at his floor, 0.50, 0.586, 0.73. So he's producing higher than his regular floor, and his floor is already high. When we're looking at his goals, 0.38. When we're looking at the last 21, 0.64. So not only we've got a guaranteed floor, we also have some upside on his floor because he's shooting and blocking shots a lot more. He's scoring a lot more. The matchup is good. That's where I'm focusing on. So this is an example, right, of how I get to count my floor, how I set myself up to have the highest upside, but at the same time securing some floor. And when I come here, we look at, I had Barkov, I had Brassard, Horny, Arvidsson, Dandanov, BJ over here. I love this guy. And on defense, I paid a little bit down, but I had a much better floor with this team by not paying up on center, because it really puts a lot of pressure on the quality of the floor that I get on my wingers and on my defense. So yesterday I had a floor of 42, and when I add my goalie at 20 points, I had 62.97 in terms of floor for block shots and shots on goal. I'm aiming 120. There's a delta of 57 points. 57 points to hit 120, I would need practically 5 goals or 7.12 assists, or 2.2 goals and 4.2 assists. And when I look at the upside that I have here, I feel much better going into a slate with a smaller floor but with a lot more upside because of McDavid. And that's how I get to calculate my floor. Others could calculate it by using fantasy points per year. Some of them are going to calculate it by fantasy points per 21 games. Of course, those numbers are going to be a lot higher. But if there's a huge gap between a player, like let's look at the centers. Who do we got? That's really high in production. Cullen. Right? I wouldn't use this guy in cash. Hayes, wouldn't use this guy in cash. When we were looking at Malkin, good cash, good floor, very expensive. Play him when he's got upside. So when we're looking at building our cash, we need to really look at the slate in general, see who's in a good spot, see who could give you the highest floor. I usually do about 15 of these lineups. I play around with the numbers. I see where I could get the highest floor with some upside. And I think Dandanov's another good example. And we'll finish with him. He doesn't have a huge floor, but when we look at how he's been playing in the last 21 and his fantasy production, there's upside there. So one of the main reasons why I went with Florida 1 in my cash game yesterday is when I put together about 15 lineups, I had the highest floor for the dollar amount with that lineup with Florida 1 than using individual players. It was not a successful night. I did not cash in any of my 50-50s. I lost 80% of what I came in. But on the long run, this is a strategy that's been working out for me very well. And we'll try and do some videos in the future where we can build a lineup and show you guys what the final product looks like. So I hope you guys enjoy this. If you've got any questions, please hit us up in Slack, and we're there to coach and teach you guys. Have yourselves a great day. Take care.